Chapter 10.
The lynch in his page. All Roger Chillingworth throughout life had been called in temperament, kindly, thought not of warm affections, but ever and in all his relation with the world, a pure and upright man. He had begun an investigation as he imagined it with the severe and equal integrity of a judge. The series only of truth, even as if the question involved no more than the drawn lines and figures of a geometrical problem, instead of human patience and grounds inflated himself. But as he proceeded, a terrible fascination, a kind of fierce, thought still calm, necessary he had done all it bitterly, he now dug into the poor clergyman's heart. Like a miner searching for gold, or rather like a sexton delving into a grave, possibly in quest of a jewel that had been buried on the dead man's bosom, but likely to find nothing save mortality and corruption. Alas for his own soul, if this were what he saw. Sometimes a light glimmered out of the physician's eyes, burning blue and ominous, like the reflection of a furnace, or let us say, like one of those gleams of ghastly fire that darted from Bernard awful doorway in the hillside, and carried off the pilgrim's face. The soil where this dark miner was working had perchance shown indication that encouraged him. "This man," said he, at one such moment to himself, poor as they deemed him, and spiritual as he seems, had inherited a strong animal nature from his father or his mother. Let us dig a little farther in the direction of this vein. Then, after a long search into the minister's dim interior, and turning over many precious materials in the shape of a high aspiration for the welfare of his race, warm love for souls, pure sentiments, natural piety, strengthened by thought and study, and illuminated by revelation, all of which the label God was perhaps no better than rubbish to the seeker. He would turn back, discouraged, and begin his quest towards another point. He groped along as stealthily with a cautious tread, and as wary a outlook as the thief entering a chamber where a man lies soundly half as asleep, or it may be broad awake, with purpose to steal the very treasure which this man wears as the apple of his eyes. In spite of his preliminary carefulness, the floor will now and then crack. His garments will rustle. The shadow of his presence in a forbearing proximity will be thrown across his victim. In other words, Mr. Dinsley, whose sensibility of nerve often produces the effect of spiritual intuition, will become vaguely aware that something inimical to his peace had thrust itself into relation with him. But old Roger Chillingworth, too, had perceptions that were almost intuitive, and when the minister turned his startled eyes towards him, there the physician sat, his kind, watchful, sympathizing, but never intrusive friend. Yet, Mr. Jenkins would perhaps have seen this individual's character more perfectly if a certain mordicness, to which sick hearts are liable, had not rendered him suspicious of all mankind. Trusting no man as his friend, he could not recognize his enemy when the latter actually appeared. He therefore still kept up a familiar intercourse with him, daily receiving the old physician in his study, or visiting the laboratory, and, for recreation's sake, watching the processes by which weeds were converted into drugs of potency. One day, leaning his forehead on his hand, and his elbow on the sill of the open window, then looking towards the graveyard, he talked with Roger Shillingworth, while the old man was standing in a dumble of unsightly plants. "Where?" asked he, with a look askance at them, for it was the clergyman's. Peculiarly that he seldom, nowadays, looked straight forth at any object, whether human or inanimate. "Where, my kind doctor, did you get those herbs with such a dark flabby leaf?" "Even in the graveyard, here at hand," answered the physician, continuing his employment. "They are new to me. I found them growing on a grave, which bore the tombstone, no other memorial of the dead man, save these ugly weeds that have taken upon themselves to keep him in remembrance. They grew out of his heart, and purified, it may be, some hideous secret that was buried with him, and which he had done better to confess during his lifetime." "Perchance," said Mr. Dinsday, "he at least desired it, but could not." "And wherefore," rejoined the physician, "wherefore not, since all the powers of nature call so earnestly for the confession of sin, that these black weeds have sprung out of a buried heart, to make manifest an unspoken crime." "Crime? That, good sir, is but a fantasy of yours," replied the minister. "There can be, if I forebode aright, no power, short of the divine mercy, to disclose, whether by uterine words or by type of or emblem, the secret that may be buried with the human heart. The heart, making itself guilty of such secret, must perforce help them, until the day when all hidden things shall be revealed. Nor have I so read or interpreted wholly right, as to understand that the disclosure of human thoughts and deeds, then to be made, is intended as a part of the retribution. That certainly were a shallow view of it. No, these revelations, unless I really err, are meant merely to promote the intellectual satisfaction of all the intelligent-speaking beings, who will stand waiting on that day to see the dark problem of this life made plain. And knowledge of man's heart will be needful to the complete solution of that problem. And I conceive, moreover, that the hearts holding such miserable secret as you speak of will yield them up at last day, not with reluctance, but with a joy irretrievable. "Then why not reveal them here?" asked Roger Shallingworth, glancing quietly aside at the minister. "Why should not the guilty ones soon reveal themselves as irritable souls?" "They mostly do," said the clergyman, gripping hard at his breast, as if afflicted with an importunate dart of pain. "Many, many a poor soul has given its confidence to me, not only on the death-bed, but while strong in life, in fair reputation, and ever after such an outpouring. Oh, what a relief have I, have I witnessed in those sinful brethren, even as in one who at last roused free air, after long stifling with his own piled breath. How can it be otherwise? Why should a wretched man, guilty will say, or murder, prefer to keep the dead corpse buried in his own heart, rather than fling it forth at once and let the universe take care of it? Yet some men bury their secrets thus, observed the calm physician. True, there are such men, answered Mr. Dinsdale, but not to suggest more obvious reason. It may be that they are kept silent by the very constitution of their nature, or can we not suppose it? Wealthy as they may be, retaining nevertheless a seal of godliness in man's welfare, they shrink from displaying themselves black and filthy in the view of men, because thenceforward no good can be achieved by them, no evil of the past by redeemed by very service. So, to their own irretrievable torment, they go about among their few creatures, looking pure as snow falling snow, while their hearts are all speckled and spotted with impurity of which they cannot rid themselves. These men deceive themselves, said Roger Chillingworth, with somewhat more emphasis than usual, and make a slight gesture with his forefinger. They dare to take up, take up the shame that rightfully belongs to them. Their love for man, their zeal of God's service, these holy impulses may or may not coexist in their hearts with the evils inmates to which their guilty has unmerited door, in which must needs propagate a hellish breed within them. But if they seek to glorify God, let them not leave heavenward their unclean hands. If they would serve their fellow men, let them do it by making manifest the power and ruler of conscience, in constraining them to penitential self-abasement, was to have me to believe, a wise or patient friend, that a false show can be more for God's glory and man's welfare than God's own truth. Trust me, such men deceive themselves. It may be so, said the young clergyman indifferently, as waiving a discussion that he considered irrelevant or unsustainable. He had a ready faculty indeed of escaping from any topic that agitated his too sensitive and nervous temperament. But now I will ask of my well-beloved physician, whether in good sooth he deems me to have profited by his kindly care of this weak frame of mine? Before Roger Shuttleworth could answer, they heard declare, while learned of a young child's voice, proceeding from the audience's burial ground, looking instinctively from the open window, for it was summer-time. The mirrors beheld Hester Prynne and little Pearl pacing along the footpath that traversed the enclosure. Pearl looked as beautiful as they, but was in one of those moods of perverse merriment which, whenever they occurred, seeming to remove her entirely out of the sphere of sympathy of human contact. She now skipped reverently from one grave to another, until coming to the broad, flat, armorial tombstone of a departed worthy, perhaps of Isaac Johnson himself, she began to dance upon it, in reply to her mother's command, and entreated that she would behave more decorously. Little bird paused to gather the prickly bars from a tall burdock which grew beside the tomb. Taking a handful of these, she arranged them along the lines of the scarlet letter that decorated the maternal bosom, to which the bearers, as their nature was, tenaciously adhered. Hester did not pluck them off. Roger Shuttleworth had by this time approached the window, and smiled grimly down. There is no law, nor reverence for authority, no regard for human ordinances or opinions, right or wrong. mixed up with that choice of composition, remarked he, as much to himself as to his companion. I saw her the other day. This chair the governor said with water at the carol thrown in Spring Lane. What in heaven's name is she? Is the it altogether able? Had she affections? Had she any discoverable principle of being? None, save the freedom of a broken law, answered Mr. Dinsday, in a quiet way, as if he had been discussing the point within himself. Whether capable of good, I know now. The child probably overheard their voices, for looking up to the window with a bright but narrow smile of mirth and intelligence, she drew one of the prickly bars at the Reverend Mr. Dinsdale. The sensory clergyman shrank with nervous dread from the light visibly. Detecting his emotion, Pearl clapped her little hands in the most extravagant ecstasy. Hester Prynne, likewise, had involuntarily looked up, and all these four persons, old and young, regarding one another in silence, till the child aloud and shouted, "Come away, mother, come on away, or your little black man will catch you." He had got hold of the minister already. "Come away, mother, or he will catch you, but he cannot catch a little bird." So she drew her mother away, skipping, dancing, and frisking frantically among the high rocks of the dead people, like a creature that had nothing in common with a begun and buried generation, nor only herself akin to it. It was as if she had been made afresh out of the new elements and must perforce be permitted to live her own life, and be allowed unto herself, without her eccentricities being reckoned to her for a crime. There was a woman, resumed Roger Chillingworth, after a pause, who, be her demurrers that they may, had none of the mystery of hidden sinfulness which you deem glorious to be borne. Is Hester Prynne the less merciful, think you, for that scarlet letter of her breast? I do rarely believe it, answered the clergyman. Nevertheless, I cannot answer for her. There was a look of pain in her face which I would gladly have been spared the sight of, but still, methinks it must needs be better for the sufferer to be free to show his pain, as this poor woman has the right, that to cover it all up in his heart. There was another pause, and the physician began anew to examine and arrange the plans which he had gathered. "You inquired for me a little time ago," said he, "and lent my judgment as touching your health." "I did," answered the clergyman, "and we will gladly learn it. Speak frankly, I pray you, be it for life or death." "Really, then, and plainly," said the physician, still busy with his plans, but keeping a wary eye on Mr. Dinsday. "The disorder is a strange one, not so much in itself, nor as outwardly manifested, in so far, at least, as the symptoms have been laid open to my observation. Looking daily at you, my good sir, and watching the tokens of your aspect, now for months are gone by, I should deem you man sore sick, it may be, yet not so sick but an instructed and watchful physician might do well how to cure you. But I know what to say. The disease is what I seem to know, yet know it not. You speak in riddles, learned sir, said the pale minister, glancing aside out of the window. "Then, to speak more plainly," continued the physician, "and I crave pardon, sir, should it seem to require pardon, for this needful plainness of my speech, let me ask of your friend, as one having charge under Providence as your life, and the providence of your life and physical well-being. Had all the operation of this disorder been fairly laid open and recounted to me? How can you question it? asked the minister surlily. Asked the minister surlily. It were child's play to call in a physician and then hide the sore. You will tell me, then, that I know all, said Roger Shuttleworth, belligerently, and fixing an eye, bright with intense and concentrated intelligence on the minister's face. Be it so, but again he too, one only the outward and physical evil, is let open knoweth of oftentimes, but half the evil which he is called upon the cure about a disease which we look upon as well and entire within itself, may, after all, be but a symptom of some ailment on the spiritual part. Your pardon, once again, good sir, if my speech gives the shadow of offence. You, sir, of all men one I have known, and he was both in the closet conjoining doing and identified, so to speak, with the spirit whereof is the instrument. Then I need ask no further, said the clergyman, somewhat hastily rising from his chair. You dare not, I take it, in medicine for the soul. The scarlet thus, as like this, continued Roger Shydeworth, going on, in an undertone, without hidden interruption, but standing up and confronting the emaciated and white-cheeked minister with his loud, dark, and misshapen figure, a sickness a sore place, if we may so call it, in your spirit had immediately its appropriate manifestation in your body frame. Will you, therefore, that your physician hail the body evil? How many this be, unless you first lay open to him the good or trouble in your soul? No, not to thee, not to an early physician, cried Mr. Dinsdale, passionately, and turning his eyes fully bright, and with a kind of fierceness on all Roger Shuttleworth. Not to thee, but if it be the soul disease, then to it I commit myself to the one physician of the soul. He, if it is done with his good pleasure, can cure, or he can kill. Let him do with me as, in his justice and wisdom, he shall see good. But who art thou that meddlest in this matter, that darest thrust himself between the sufferer and his God? With a frantic gesture, he rushed about the room. "It is a well to have made his step," said Roger Shuttleworth to himself, looking after the minister with a grave smile. "There is nothing lost. We shall be friends again anon. But see now how patience takes hold upon his man, and hurry him out of himself, as with one patient, so with another. He had done a wild thing ere now, this fierce Master Dinsday, in the whole passion of his heart. It proved not difficult to establish the intimacy of the two companions, on the same footing and the same degree as heretofore. The young clergyman, after a few hours of privacy, was sensible that the disorder of his nerves had hurried him into an unseemly break of temper, which there had been nothing in the physician's words to excuse or palliate. He marvelled, indeed, in the violence with which he had thrust back the kind old man, when merely preferring the advice which it was his duty to bestow, and which the minister himself had expressly sought. With these remorseful feelings he lost no time in making the amplest apologies, and besought his friend still to continue the care which, if not successful in restoring him to health, had, in all probability, many means of prolonging his feeble existence to that hour. Roger Shangham readily assented, and went on with his medical supervision of the minister, doing his best for him in all good faith, but always carrying the patient's apartment at the close of a professional interview, with a mysterious and puzzling smile upon his lips. This expression was invisible in Mr. Jinsden's presence, but grew strongly evident as the physician crossed the threshold. "A rare case," he murmured. "I must needs look deeper into it. A strange temporary bedwith, solemnity, were it only for the art say sack. I must search this matter to the bottom." It came to pass not long after the scene above recorded that the Reverend Mr. Jinstead at noonday, and entirely unwards fell into a deep, deep slumber, sitting in his chair with a large black letter volume open before him on the table. It must have been a work of vast ability in the semi-first school of literature. The profound depth of the minister's repose was the more remarkable in inasmuch as he was one of those persons who whose sleep ordinarily is as light, as fitful, and as easily scared away as a small bird hopping on a thing. To such an unwonted remorse, however, had his spirit now withdrawn into itself, that he stirred on his chair when all when all Roger Shuttleworth, without any extraordinary precaution, came into the room. The physician advanced directly in front of his patient, laid his hand upon his bosom, and thrust aside the vestment that hitherto had always carried open from the professional eye. Then, indeed, Mr. Jinstead shuddered and slightly stirred. After a brief pause, the physician turned away, but with what a wild look of wonder, joy, and horror, with what a ghastly rapture, as it were, to be expressed only by the eye and features, and therefore bursting forth through the bold ugliness of his figure, and making itself even ritually manifest by the extravagant gestures with which he threw up his arms toward the ceiling and stamped his foot upon the floor. Had a man seen old Roger Shuttleworth at the moment of his ecstasy, he would have had no need to ask how Satan compares himself, when a precious human soul is lost to heaven, and won into his kingdom. But what distinguished the physician's ecstasy from Satan was the train of wonder